Hello hunters, my name is DarkHero, welcome back to my channel where we cover Monster Hunter content. I am so glad you are here, and today we're going to be talking about my biggest concerns regarding Iceborne. I have had the idea to make this video for a good while, but I ultimately decided to postpone it because I had this feeling that we were going to get a playable demo for the expansion. Turns out we actually did get an Iceborne demo, 2 of them in fact, and they were a lot of fun. We got to fight 2 new monsters, Best Boy Bombaro and Biotodas, and we also got to fight 2 returning monsters, which of course are Tigrex and Argacuga, with the latter only being available in the second week of the demo. If you want to know my general thoughts on these demos, then you can find a link to a video I made in the description, or you can press the eye icon to see it. That being said, today we are focusing on my biggest concerns for the Iceborne expansion. Despite how hyped and optimistic I am, there is still a lot we don't know about Iceborne. Monster Hunter World is an amazing game, my personal favorite in fact, but it undoubtedly has some major flaws that hinder the player experience, flaws that I would like to see addressed in this expansion. The Monster Hunter team has always done a phenomenal job with their G-Rank expansions, so I am certain I'm going to love Iceborne, but it seems that now, more than ever, the Monster Hunter team has been receptive of feedback and criticism, so I am making this video in hopes that it will improve the game we all love. Now that we have gotten that important disclaimer out of the way, let's get into what is perhaps the most important thing out of this entire list. And that is the endgame of Iceborne. Admittedly, it's only natural that we don't know what the endgame will be at this point, but I think we can all agree in the feeling of being concerned with the endgame of the expansion. After all, Monster Hunter World's endgame was, frankly, a bit lacking. There were no special secret monsters to fight, no guild quests to do with friends, all we had was decoration farming, fighting the same group of monsters over and over again in hopes of being lucky and obtaining those decorations you were looking for. It is all based on RNG and goes against the core gameplay loop of Monster Hunter, which is all about player agency. Kulftaroth also did not help in this regard, as it was a slot machine that held the best weapons in the game captive behind a disgustingly large pool of weapons dictated by RNG. Things did get better at some point with the introduction of Arc-Tempered monsters, which have helped flesh out the endgame experience of Monster Hunter World by offering gamma sets as rewards, but even that was a bit lackluster. We need an endgame that isn't just dictated by RNG, something to keep us playing for a very long time. And I am not just talking about achievements or trying to reach the highest rank possible. A fair amount of RNG would still be reasonable, mind you, but I think most players would prefer some more meaningful activities that they have some control over. Guild quests from Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate increase the stakes and provide you with significant upgrades as you would raise the level of those quests. Or another good example would be the Deviants from Generations and Generations Ultimate. And while we are at it, I hope some of the new monsters don't get left out in the endgame of Iceborne. I rarely get to fight Anjanath, Puke, Tobikadachi and so on, because they simply don't wield good rewards. I just don't want to see the same thing happening to Bombaro and some other monsters we may get in this expansion. And if we get a new siege quest in Iceborne, I really hope it doesn't have a weapon pool. Another concern I have is regarding the online experience. I could probably make an entire video dedicated to this, but I'll try to keep it short. Firstly is the balance between solo play versus multiplayer. Currently there is absolutely no reason to hunt with other people except for quests that are already designed for multiplayer, such as Kulftaroth, Behemoth or the Ancient Lesson. If anything, going on quests with other players generally makes quests take longer and increases the risk of failing them. Previous Monster Hunter games always encouraged co-op, but due to Monster Hunter World lacking hub quests, the sense of community is somewhat lost, and I am afraid that Iceborne will not do much to change it. The fact that other players can only be seen in the Gathering Hub and that no one really visits the Gathering Hub because it is missing key facilities only exacerbates this problem. Now, thankfully, the developers have been hearing our feedback and are making it so that the Gathering Hub in Celiana, the new base in the Iceborne expansion, is going to have all of the key facilities. Hopefully that means that we're going to see a lot more players visiting the Gathering Hub and that it won't be as empty as it currently is in the base game of Monster Hunter World. Now let's talk about another concern that I have, and that is regarding the metagame of Monster Hunter World Iceborne. As I am sure most of you know by now, the meta in Monster Hunter World at the current moment we are in is very lackluster and there isn't a lot of variety when it comes to endgame meta builds. For example, if you are a gunner, you are likely using 3 pieces from the Xeno'jiiva Gamma set, and if you are a melee user, you are most likely using 4 pieces from the Draken Armor set, and then complementing that with something like the Empress Male Beta to get peak performance and some other skills. Again, there isn't a lot of variety when it comes to these endgame meta builds, especially when it comes to melee weapons, and we have had this meta for a very long time. I mean, Behemoth was first released in Monster Hunter World about a year ago, so we have had access to some of these insanely powerful builds since then. The fact that the meta has remained so stale for this long is a big problem in my opinion, especially when the developers are putting out new content and giving us new armor pieces and gear pieces, and even with that the meta does not change. I think that at this point in time, hunters are just too powerful. We have many armor pieces with multiple level 3 decoration slots, weapons that come with skills that are armor set bonuses, so when you think about all of that, I think that this is the case of power creep having gone too far. And there is a chance that in Iceborne things might get even crazier because after all, Mentals, for example, will be able to be upgraded and will have decoration slots, something that is not present in the base game. The meta wasn't always this style, especially at the beginning, when you had things such as the Nergigante set or the Odokaron set with the King's Eye patch, and even people that would use 2 pieces from the Rathalos armor set and 3 pieces from the Teostra armor set in order to get Master's Touch and Critical Element. You had to make meaningful choices and give up powerful skills in order to gain other ones. There wasn't a single all-encompassing build that was able to defeat everything with ease, but right now there is, and I think that that becomes a bit of a problem. I mean, the whole point of Monster Hunter is to craft new stuff, getting new weapons, new armor sets, and keeping on improving. And when you have an armor set that has been the best for almost an entire year, well, it just so happens that the grind becomes meaningless and all of these Gamma armor sets that we have been receiving and are a bit of a challenge to obtain become meaningless because, quite simply, you are not going to be using them. Now, I know that many people do not care about the meta in Monster Hunter, something that I'll talk about extensively in another video, so look forward to that. But with that being said, I want to make it very clear that the meta does in fact see your gameplay one way or another. Now, there is a big opportunity here to reset the meta in Iceborne by making it so that master rank armor pieces will have few decoration slots and so that decoration slots are an actual rarity. I know some of you might not agree with what I'm saying here, but this is all in hopes of trying to see a more varied endgame and meta all around. The lack of unique, varied and colorful weapon designs was one of the biggest disappointments longtime fans of the series had with Monster Hunter World. Most weapons look nearly identical to each other. It's a piece of metal with different colored feathers on top. This problem is especially evident with hammers and hunting horns. This design choice was likely due to the developers trying to appeal to a broader audience, but in doing so, a lot of personality and what made weapons special in the older games was lost. This did not sit well with the community, and after seeing what some of the new weapons look like, fans aren't too hopeful. It is entirely possible that this isn't the final version of the Nargacuga Insect Glaive and that the final version will look good or close enough to the original. But given the history with Monster Hunter World, it's no wonder fans have started making memes about this. However, not all is gloom and doom, as the Monster Hunter team is taking feedback into account. Capcom's community manager Sox has even made a post on Twitter asking Monster Hunter World players what their favorite weapon designs were, presumably to give us better designs in Iceborne. I will leave a link to this post in the description, so make sure you go over there and reply with your favorites. And finally, what was a big concern for me at the start, and still kind of is in a way, is the new weapon mechanics and the clutch claw. For the most part, it all feels great. I love the changes they made to the hunting horn especially, and I was really scared that the clutch claw and all of these things related to the slinger were all just going to be gimmicks or were going to trivialize the game. As it turns out, these mechanics are quite powerful, a lot of fun, and don't seem to break the game. They provide moments of opportunity, but it doesn't feel unbalanced or unfair, or at least not yet. My problem, however, is that using some of these new moves or mechanics can be quite clunky, especially with the more complex weapons that already use a lot of buttons or the ones that already have their own reticle. Take for example the Heavy Bogan Sniper Scope or the bow's 1000 Dragons. The Sniper Scope just feels all around sluggish, and that is to not just use the scope but to equip it as well. As for the bow, well, there's just a lot of buttons to press to perform the 1000 Dragons. You need to hold the L2 button to aim, press L3 to swap to aiming with the slinger, then while still holding the L2 button, aim at the monster with R3, and then press triangle and circle at the same time to fire 1k arrows. It's a lot for a single action, and I get that it deals a good amount of damage, but it just feels clunky. Not to mention that it is significantly harder to use against a moving target, especially if it's an agile monster like Nargacuga. On top of that, you can't combo anything into 1k dragons because if you want to use it, you have to stop whatever it is you're doing just to swap to aim with the slinger. And the fact that if you have the bow out and are aiming with the slinger, then put the bow down, when you draw the bow again, you will be aiming with the bow and not with the slinger like you were when you sheathed your weapon. I know that this is minor, but it's a detriment to the player experience that could be easily fixed, and I am afraid it would just discourage players from using the new mechanics. And on the same topic of weapon changes and mechanics, while many weapons got well-deserved buffs, like again the hunting horn, others were rightfully nerfed like the heavy bogan and the bow, but were compensated in other ways. But I feel like some weapons deserved a bit more. For example, I think the changes made to gun lance and switch axe weren't that significant. The gun lance could use guard points or maybe a new offensive option, since you won't be using those explosive mines all that often. And the switch axe could definitely use something more than a backward swing. Also, that move where you press L2 after dodging with the sword and shield to grapple onto a monster seems rather weird as well, because you can just grapple onto a monster very easily by aiming the clutch claw, and the clutch claw even has greater range. Honestly, I don't know why that move was added. Maybe some of you guys have found some good uses for it, but myself, I don't see it as being all that useful. I just think that there would have been better options. The True Rush combo is cool and all, but maybe adding guard points, that would be really cool, and that would make shield bashing much more viable. And of course there is oils. Everyone would love to see oils return from Generations and Generations Ultimate. I doubt these specific things will change before Iceborne launches, since it would require a whole lot more than just changing the weapon's attack values, but it is still one of my concerns that the fans of these weapons will feel like they were shafted or underappreciated because the new additions they got to their favorite weapons weren't all that good. These are my biggest concerns for the Iceborne expansion. Please keep in mind that this all comes from a place of someone who loves Monster Hunter and will no doubt love Iceborne, even if all of my concerns become a reality. I just wanted to provide some criticism in hopes that it could potentially make the game better. So if you agree with what I have said in this video, feel free to share it, and who knows, it may even reach someone from Capcom. But again, these are minor changes because I think that Iceborne is going to be a fantastic expansion, and once again I will love it, no doubt. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a like on it as it helps me out a lot, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and turn on channel notifications if you don't want to miss an ounce of Monster Hunter goodness. And as always, a big thank you goes out to my patrons for choosing to support me and helping me do what I love. Especially John Cohen for being a mighty hero. If you would like to support me, the link to my Patreon is down below in the description, but with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. My name is DarkHero, and happy hunting!